everyone. Myself, Diana, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor of the Department of Philosophy of Religion and Religious Studies, St. Petersburg University, was appointed chairman of this dissertation council. Let me also introduce my fellow council members. Yemельянов Vladimir Vladimirovich, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor of the Department of Semitology and Hebraistics of St. Petersburg University. Samoilov Nikolai Anatolievich, Doctor of Historical Sciences, Professor with the duties of the Head of Department of Theory of Social Development of Asia and Africa of St. Petersburg State University. Shaknovich Mariana Mikhailovna, Doctor of Philosophy, Head of the Department of Philosophy of Religion and Religious Studies of St. Petersburg University. In the remote mode, we have Irina Yevgeny Igorovich, Doctor of Philosophy, Head of Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies of Vladimir State University, named after Alexander Grigorovich and Nikolai Grigorovich Stoletovs. Berezkin Rostislav Vladimirovich, Doctor of Philosophy, Senior Researcher, Institute of Humanities, Fundan University, China. Dear colleagues, first let me emphasize that according to the Federal Law number of the 23rd of August 1996, number 127, on science and the state, scientific and technical policy, St. Petersburg University has the right to award academic degrees independently. A corresponding order on the procedure for awarding the academic degrees at St. Petersburg University, on the basis of which we are holding this session of the Council, was issued on the 1st of September 2016, order number 6821/1, hereinafter the order. In accordance with this order, a session of the Dissertation Council is duly constituted if at least 2/3 of the approved members of the Council are participating, but not less than 4 persons. Our Dissertation Council consists of 6 members. All the members are present, including 2 members of the Council in the remote interactive mode. Audio-visual contact to them has been established. Thus, there is a quorum. Dear colleagues, let me set forth the procedure of today's session with the total duration of no more than 2 hours. The Chairman's summary report on the main content of the documents submitted by the candidate and their compliance with the applicable requirements. Answers to possible questions, 5 minutes. A brief presentation by the degree applicant outlining the key points of her study, 15 minutes. Questions to the applicant strictly on her report, no more than 5 minutes per question. Answers of the applicant. Speeches of all members of the Dissertation Council with their reviews. We shall do it in the alphabetical order, with statements of their opinions, questions and suggestions to the applicant, no more than 10 minutes for each speaker. Speech of the chairman and her review. Answers of the applicant to questions and remarks of members of the Dissertation Council. The applicant like to respond to each member of the Council individually. After each review, the applicant will speak. Open discussion, speeches of attendees with a summary of their positions and/or specific questions and suggestions to the dissertation strictly on the topic of the study, but not more than 5 minutes per person. Dear colleagues, to do that, all the speakers are kindly requested to put their names on the registration sheet and introduce themselves in full before speaking. Number 8, final answers of the applicant to questions asked, not more than 5 minutes. Number 9, speech of the academic advisor. Number 10, a 5-minute discussion before the open voting on awarding or not awarding the academic degree to the candidate. For the time of this discussion of the council members, the broadcast shall be suspended. 11. Open individual voting. The chairman of the Dissertation Council shall count the votes and the results shall be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. A decision on awarding or not awarding the St. Petersburg University academic degree to the applicant and closing remarks of the applicant, no more than 2 minutes. Dear colleagues, does anyone have any questions or comments to the procedure? Before starting the official procedure, let me remind you to switch off your mobile phone. Thank you for your understanding. Let me also inform you that our meeting shall be recorded and broadcast online at the St. Petersburg University website, and speeches are being simultaneously translated from Russian into English. So let us start the meeting. The first item, the thesis by Keidun, Irina B, of the degree of candidate of Doctor of Philosophy, specialization 090014, Philosophy, Religion, Religious Studies, on the theme Ancient Chinese Life Cycle Rituals, Structure and Functions of the Rite of Passage, a case study of the classical Confucian treatise, Li Ji, was accepted for defense by the order of the Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg University on the 15th of July 2019, 7660/1. The Dissertation Council was appointed by the order of the Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg University on the 15th of July 2019, 7662/1, and I have already introduced its members to you, dear colleagues and guests. The applicant submitted the following documents to the Academic Secretary of St. Petersburg University: an application to the Rector of St. Petersburg University, Professor Kropotchev, for acceptance of the thesis for consideration and defense, submitted on the 19th of March 2019. A review of the academic advisors, Yakov Andrei Pavlovich, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor, Head of the Department of Religious Studies and History of Amur State University. A list of 15 publications which set out the main scientific results of the thesis, including 15 articles in peer-reviewed scientific journals from the list approved by the Ministry of Education and Science of the Russian Federation. A diploma of Candidate of Science, KT number 100906, issued on the 18th of July 2003, certifying that Keidun Irina B was awarded the degree of Candidate of Historical Sciences by the decision of the Dissertation Council of St. Petersburg State University, the 20th of April 2003, number 6. In conclusion of the organization, where the work has been performed, Amur State University. The thesis in Russian and English on paper, on the rights of manuscripts in the electronic form. The thesis has been formatted in accordance with the requirements of State Standard R7.0. The thesis was printed and multiplied with indication of the output data according to the State Standard R704. It should be noted that all the documents listed above comply with Clause 12, Section 3, Thesis, Presentation and Defense, the procedure for awarding the academic degrees at St. Petersburg University, Annex 1 to the order. Let's give the floor to Irina B, and the time limit is 15 minutes. Dear Chairman, dear colleagues, dear members of the Council, dear colleagues and guests, let me present to you my thesis on the ancient Chinese life cycle rituals, structure and functions of the rite of passage based on the materials of the classical Confucian treatise, Li Ji. The most important goal of humanities science is to strive to understand the nature of social and human development. This goal is achieved through in-depth and detailed study of different peoples and types of culture. Despite the diversity of human societies, they are characterized by similar features of social life, which are characterized by the presence of similar institutions, beliefs, and perceptions. The problem of studying the ritual has not lost its relevance to date. There is still room for theoretical understanding of individual problems of symbolic behavior, and specific scientific data require generalization, analysis. Rituals of transition are of interest as extremely widespread phenomena of social life. They have a universal character and accompany any person throughout the entire life cycle. And such an order is unchanged from the moment of origin of religious ideas to the present day. Any significant event in the social life marks a person's transition to the new conditions, the new stage of existence. The most important events mark the milestones of the life cycle through which everyone passes. The study of the way of life, religious belief, social norms, which are widespread in ancient China, the Chinese phenomenon of socialization should be noted that the phenomenon of religious practices and religious are not sufficiently reduced to circulation. Today, the situation remains largely unchanged, in which Chinese realities are a subject of study. As a result, researchers working on social institutions with universal phenomena do not have enough Chinese data to support these universals or speak of regional specific features. Comprehensive research based on a systematic comprehensive study of the various materials is needed, which, in the end, through observation and analysis, will provide an opportunity to make new theoretical generalizations and to refine the existing ones. Today, countries of about old China demonstrate sustainable development. One of the most important tasks which China's current leadership is striving to achieve is stable and harmonious development of the state. Stability in all spheres is possible, first of all, due to social ability and preservation of fundamental social values. Whether the norms regulating social relations in traditional China have served for many centuries as peculiar scrapers that help to keep society in the state of stability, contributed to the preservation of stability and transfer of the key values of the collective from one generation to another. In this connection, the Li Ji text, in our opinion, extremely relevant to the classical Chinese cultural movement. Li Ji is one of the most important but still insufficiently studied Chinese classical texts, written in the 1st century BC. This collection was included in the important period in Li Ji was a result of a great deal of work done in the field of spiritual culture, was linked to the understanding of the heritage of the past. The authors of the collection realized the task of creating an image of the ideal social structure based on norms of decent behavior and ritual. As a result, we are dealing with the richest written monument, which reflects almost all the aspects of life of ancient Chinese society, and above all, of the ritual establishment, the significance of which for the maintenance of stability and harmonious development of the social structure is discussed in the treatise. Thus, a comprehensive study of Confucianism, religious life, and social norms of traditional China is impossible without the active use of Li Ji. The philosophical religious analysis we have carried out on the basis of the materials of the treatise shows the universality of this monument and the prospect for its further study by representatives of various directions of scientific knowledge. The object novelty of such first of all, the Confucian ritual is a complete religious event with internal structure. Became an object of systematic research. For the first time in religious studies, the theory of rituals of passage is in detail considered with reference to rituals of life cycle Zhou China, initiation, wedding, funeral, mourning. The concept of transition rituals was developed by Arnold van Gennep on the basis of materials of ritual sphere of a large number of different peoples, among which there is virtually no information about China. This dissertation study fills this gap. The implementation of such work is extremely important if we bear in mind the importance of ritual practices in ancient China and the high level of its development. The dissertation research based on the materials of Li Ji describes the detailed ancient Chinese rituals, initiations, mating, funeral, and mourning in terms of their structure, symbols, and functions. For the first time, the Confucian treatise, Li Ji, was subjected to systematic and complex research. Previously, the numerous works of Li Ji addressed, first of all, as a part of the Confucian Pentateuch, trying to explain the key postulates of Confucian teaching with the help of an ancient monument. The experience of the thesis research has shown that the treatise can and should become an object of close attention researchers of various specialties, including religious scholars who analyze the universal spiritual development. For this kind of work, Chinese realities can be a confirmation of general conclusions and conclusions, as well as example of regional specific features. The information concerning the history of compilation of the treatise, the G, is clarified, and its commentary tradition is recreated in detail for the first time, covering the chronological period from the 1st century indeed the middle of the 20th century. The richness and developed character which confirms the important place of this treatise in the spiritual heritage of Confucian China. Based on the study of the canonical monument, an attempt has been made to describe the ritual space of the ancestral temple in ancient China. The work completed enabled us to achieve the following results. By, on the basis of summary, the main religious and philosophical definition of the ritual, its essential characteristics can, in our view, be summarized as follows. The ritual is an element of social life developed by the team of an integral system of coherent, interrelated, and mutually conditioned, completed symbolic actions, clothed in regulated, standardized form, and containing elements of mental and verbal activity. The ritual is aimed primarily at solving the social problem faced by the collective, restoring the morality and harmony disturbed by a crisis, and, as a result, removing any danger from society. With the help of the ritual, social relations are regulated, the cohesion of the collective is maintained, its existence is stable, and the position of the higher forces toward it is preserved. The ritual removes anxiety from the members of the society, regulates their emotions, and inspires confidence. Ultimately, the ritual translates the traditions and beliefs that are fundamental to the collective and regenerate the society. A special contribution to the study of the ritual was made by the French researcher Arnold van Gennep, who developed the concept of rituals of transition. The ritual transition records the change of the social status of a person. This event consists of separate stages or states of the main actors. The complete scheme of the transition ritual theoretically consists of 3 stages. Preliminary separation, which includes actions aimed at separating the participant from his former state. An intermediate state, and postliminary inclusion, uniting actions aimed at the integration of the hero into the new society. We can say that the ritual's transition was changing its birth, initiation. Researchers say these are the crisis phases in the life of a man. Such crisis periods in the limelight of religion. In addition to that, such additions transition from one state to another, crossing the border between one world and another. Such events followed, usually accompanied by a ceremony which guarantees safe transition from one state to another. In general, the means of achieving the goal are similar in nature, and despite the specific differences in the ceremonies accompanying the individual events, they are generally similar to each other. The main text, we used Confucian monument Li Ji, was possessing the broadest conceptual field, is the basis of the state, the model of the society, and a formative of moral and ethical behavior, whether from cosmic construction of the behavioral forms used by the man in the daily life. In Li Ji, the social relations among the main aspects of functioning, so all the rituals of the life self considered are characterized, first of all, by such functional feature as their social significance. In Li Ji, we find confirmation that the purpose of these ceremonial activities is to overcome the negative trends, to achieve stability and harmony of society and the state, unity and prosperity of the collective, maintenance of the social ties, and the hierarchical order. In addition, the analysis of data contained in the treatise has allowed us to identify other functions of no less importance for the ancient Chinese transition rituals, communicative and regulatory, closely related to the need to consolidate and maintain the basic norms and values of the collective. The function and customization of space and time, the unification and consolidation of the society, any purpose of the rituals of transition, convince of absolute significance of these events. The analysis of the structure and symbolic features of these ancient Chinese rituals, initiation, mating, funeral, and mourning, made it possible to consider all these events as transition rituals. It's about important moments of the social life in which not only the main characters take part, but also the entire society giving the required importance to the event, designed to confirm the new status of social change. As rituals of transition, these ceremonies represent a large number of ritual actions that are closely linked to each other and aimed at achieving a common goal with a social and communication function above all. In this functional aspect that should be mentioned above all, the socialization of the individual, the consolidation of his or her new social status, and the need to convey this information to the collective in order to sanction the changes that have taken place. The implementation of transition rituals in the lifestyle nation China took place with the use of sacred space of the Temple of Ancestors. This such ancestral temple played an important role. It was a sacred dimension of salvation, which was ensured by the presence of ancestral spirits. Respect of the rite of passage was it required special care, and that is why rituals had to take place in a special place, when it provided the food and a good life and stability and unity. Such a special place will be the ancestral temple. Information in Liji led us to believe that ancestral temple is a key element of religious practices. On the basis of so we concluded the symbols of on the basis of studying made the funeral mourning, such attention to spiritual life, the issues of death, funeral mourning was in the mainstream of ancestral worship, and the extreme need to fulfill all the most important regulations related to the scene of the deceased, in other words, and bringing appropriate honors. Such social behavior, according to the founders of Confucianism, should have contributed to the strengthening of virtue among the people, the preservation of the morals, and the spiritual perfection of men. The collection of Liji, created by Han Chinese scientists for ideological purposes, had to emphasize the ideal model of the structure and the moral model of social behavior. This task could be best solved by reproducing situations related to funeral and mourning problems. In conclusion, I would like to point out that the results of this work can be used by specialists of various sciences for theoretical and practical purposes. The study's findings and conclusions may serve as a basis for further development of issues related to the ritual practices in traditional China. Liji provides a promising opportunity in this regard. It's about more active involvement of the text in the scientific circulation as an important monument of spiritual culture of China, without which an objective and comprehensive analysis of the system and Confucian ideas, as well as spiritual foundations of the Chinese civilizations of the whole as a whole, is impossible. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Irina Borisovna. Does anyone have any questions to the candidate? Marina Mikhailovna, welcome. Please stick to the procedure. Thank you, Marina Mikhailovna. Does anyone else have questions? Dear colleagues, let's hear the reviews of the members of the Dissertation Council, and we shall stick to the alphabetic order. So first, we shall give the floor to Evgeny Igorevich Arinin, Doctor of Philosophy, Head of Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies of Vladimir State University, named after Stoletov's. Welcome. My throat is very sore. I submitted my... Can I read? Can somebody read? Oh, my throat is really sore. Because Evgeny Igorovich, I have his review. With his permission, I will read his review because all the reviews have been posted at the university website. Relevance of the presented thesis is beyond doubt. The author studied less known aspects of ancient Chinese rituals of the rites of passage in the line of actualization of modern philosophical and religious concepts. We should agree with the statement of the applicant that the desire to understand the nature of social movement it can be achieved through deep understanding of different peoples and cultures, because they all have similar features of social life characterized by similar institutions, beliefs and concepts. And at that, a careful study of life, religious beliefs, social norms of ancient China and comparing them to development of other nations enable us to say that the ancient Chinese phenomena of social life meet the universal scheme of human behavior and thus are interesting for a researcher, of interest to the researcher. The thesis consists of introduction, 7 chapters, and an impressive list of reference literature. The content corresponds to the goals of the study. Reliability of results proved by with religious life in China. Scientific the analyzed material enabled the applicant to prove the goal and aim, the aim and goals of the study, the explain novelty and relevance, theoretical and practical relevance of the study. The theoretical, methodological basis of this are works of the leading Russian and foreign researchers. The author's approach is very impressive. The author's statements of the author look very credible. The author reaches some interesting and relevant conclusions, has made some relevant conclusions. First of all, the concept of rite of passage can be applied to ancient Chinese rituals of life cycle, the structure and functions of which have evident features of transitory events and can be characterized from this point. Functional parameters of Chinese ancestral temple correspond to universal features characterized sacred space and temple symbols in other cultures described in literature. And finally, the structure of the treatise, especially sections dedicated to burial and mourning issues, explained by special attitude to death, funeral and mourning in Chinese traditional culture, connected with ancestral cult. The thesis by Keidun and Irina B, ancient Chinese rituals of rite of passage, on the basis of classical Confucian treatise Li Ji, meets the main requirements set forth by the order of the 1st of September 2016, 6821/1 on the order of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the candidate, Keidun Irina B, deserves to be awarded the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, specialty 090014, Philosophy of Religion and Religious Studies, clause 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated by the candidate. Member of the Dissertation Council, Professor Irina. Is everything correct? I think Evgeny Igorevich doesn't have any comments, so let's move to the next opponent. Rostislav Vladimirovich Berezkin, Doctor of Philosophy, Senior Researcher, Institute of Humanitarian of Fundan, University of China. Rostislav Vladimirovich. I will briefly read my review. First of all, I should mention relevance of the study. The theoretical understanding of ritual activities in traditional cultures is highly relevant today. This activity is based on analysis of scientific data. This is very relevant for traditional Chinese culture because in the modern world, these rituals still plays an important role, and they play a major part of Chinese cultural heritage. The thesis by Irina B, Keidun, the researcher uses data from the main texts of Confucian literature, and at the same time, Li Ji has not been well studied before. For novelty of the thesis is in the fact of, that the author uses as the object of a systematic study ancient Chinese rite of passage as a unique phenomena with its own functions and structure, though the concept of the rites of passage developed by foreign researchers has been applied to Chinese rituals by Western and Chinese researchers. Complex analysis of the rites of passage described in Li Ji treatise is taken place for the first time. The work of Irina B, Keidun, the ancient Confucian monument, has been studied comprehensive. It's a comprehensive approach for the first time. Data about the history and existence of this collection. Issues raised by the author aimed at further development of religious studies, and with the overall positive impression, should mention some points for discussion. First chapters dedicated to phenomenon of ritual in the works of scientists from different countries, which makes the theoretical basis of the study. Yet, in my opinion, this review is not exactly advocate, because complex theories have been described very briefly that do not describe, the description is insufficient. In our opinion, the work should focus on the theory of the rite of passage and how it can be applied to rituals described in Li Ji. The author should apply more theory to theoretical aspects of ancient China in the works of modern Western and Chinese and Japanese scientists. It would be worth to compare the rite of passage to the rituals in China used in later periods, described by some foreign and Chinese artists, especially in Taiwan. And I think that this should be this comparison would be. I also not entirely satisfied with the many references made to big Chinese Russian dictionary edited by Oshanin, which cannot be used to analyze the basic terms of the ancient Chinese. Bibliography is quite full, uses multiple ancient Chinese sources, but can be complemented by modern Western works by works of Keidun and Kalinowski. Yet these minor drawbacks do not emphasize, do not affect the overall value of the work. I also say that the thesis meets the key requirements set forth by the order on the order of awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the candidate Keidun, Irina B, deserves to be awarded the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, specialty Philosophy, Religion and Religious Studies. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Rostislav Vladimirovich. And let's give the floor to Irina Borisovna. Dear members of the Dissertation Council, I'd like to express my gratitude to Rostislav Vladimirovich for his attention paid to the results of my work. I would also like to thank him for his valuable comments. I see this setting goals and objectives, defining the objects and subjects of the research, led us to natural need to develop a certain structure of our research. Any discussion of the concept of transitional ritual and its application to Li Ji cannot be built without the support of a theoretical foundation, which is formed in order to get a clear picture of the essence of the issue. Taking as a basis such methodological basis, we consider it essential to include in the structure of the work the sections which are designed to generalize and systemize the necessary key for our study, the data accumulated in science related to the social, cultural nature of the ritual, its functional features. And responding to the remark of, regarding the reference to the Big Chinese-Russian Dictionary edited by Oshanin, I would like to say the following. This book is a result of tremendous work done by several generations of experts in China. It's made an huge weight of materials saved up for the previous decades, including those connected with precise interpretation of Chinese spiritual classics. By the way, is many examples of Leiji, as from other fundamental texts of the Chinese culture. At the same time, I fully share the position of opinion of Rostislav Vladimirovich that today this reference book cannot be used to define the basic terms of the Chinese culture. But I didn't use it for this purpose. For this purpose, I used other reference books. First of all, references listed in the thank Rostislav Vladimirovich for pointing out the desirability and opportunity to supplement the research with new Western Chinese and Japanese works on the ancient Chinese ritual. I accept this remark, but I'd like to say that the works of Chinese sinologists, I really did not pay due attention. Lots of Chinese authors is also an opportunity to add something new, of course. So I'm grateful for this criticism, and of course I think that it's necessary to, as for the modern Western sinologists, the names of such specific authors mentioned by Rostislav Vladimirovich, I would like to put on now that I know Mark Kalinovsky's work, and his name appears in my thesis. As for Martin Kern, I'm familiar with some of his works, and in my thesis I did not mention his works, basically because material chronologically is different from what was interesting to us. As for possible comparison of the application of the theory of ritual tradition to the ritual in China in later time, I'd like to say that this is very, very possible, but because this is beyond the scope of my thesis, so let me look at this as such further development of my work, and I'm extremely grateful for pointing out there are such scientists that can be used to conduct such a study. And once again, I would like to thank Rostislav Vladimirovich. Thank you, Irina Borisovna. Now let's hear the next review of a member of the Dissertation Council, and I would like to give the floor to Vladimir Yemelyanov, professor of St. Petersburg State University. The thesis by Irina B. Keidun is dedicated to a monument of Confucian religious philosophical tradition created in the 4th/1 century BC from the point of theory of rite of passage by Genep. Consists of introduction, sentence, conclusion, list of abbreviations, list of sources, and literature. First of all, I would like to mention understanding the functionality of the study's text, as the author has managed to demonstrate the task which the authors of Leiji faced was not to teach specific rituals, not to describe ceremonies, but to introduce an ideal universe and functioning and social relations. End of quote. That is why the thesis itself first investigates the concept of Li, and then proceeds to look at specific rituals, because Li is a norm of behavior. The author focuses on qualities of various social relations between different people, different genders, people and their deceased ancestors, people and living ancestors, human and the state. The author looks at the structure of these relations. When analyzing this, the author learns that from the initial world, the human being passes to the state between the worlds, And for initiation and marriage, symbolic actions only prove the actual transition, real social separation, liminality, and socialization when from the house of the bride moves to the house of the bridegroom. In general, should be said that the author describes rituals focus on the cult of ancestors, which is very typical for Chinese cult, ancient Chinese transition rituals, characterized by their religious and ethical significance. Analyzing data in the treatise enable the author to identify such important functions of ancient Chinese rituals as communicative and regulatory, connected with the need to strengthen and maintain the basic norms and values of the collective, and the function of customization of space and time. The collection Li Ji, compilation by Chinese scientists, should focus on ideal model of the society. Let me make one comment here. By giving it her own definition of ritual, in the end of chapter 1, the candidate says, the ritual aims, first of all, on dealing with a social problem, a challenge which the collective faces, and restoring harmony. With the help of the ritual, the social relations are regulated, and the collective becomes stronger and more stable. The ritual relieves tension in the members and regulates their emotions, gives them confidence. This is very true, but this is true, but this conclusion was first made in 1947 by David in his book Evolution and Genetic Problems in Neuropathology. He was a physiologist. The father of clinical neurogenetics was able to identify this connection between a level of insecurity and rituals. This is well known. This is well known to shamans, priests. Yet the author does not refer to the book by Davydenkov, and I don't know that her understanding of ritual has been described by Soviet-Sash. Indeed, what happens from world of students who breaks a branch to stop the sun. He is insecure. He's worried, and this insecurity affects him. He becomes obsessed with it, and then in his brain he focuses and uses the negative induction from this second source to calm himself down. So he gets rid of feelings create this sense of worry. Has the ritual achieved its purpose? Yes, and this Australian man repeats the same action next time. Whose actions are based on experience. Yet this minor comment does not affect the overall positive assessment of the thesis. The thesis by Keidun, Irina B, Ancient Chinese Rituals of Rites of Passage Rituals, Structure and Function. Based on a classical Confucian treatise Li Ji, meets the key requirements set forth by the order, the 1st of September 2016. 6821/1 on the order of awarding academic degrees at Petersburg State University, and the applicant, Keidun Irina B, deserves the awarded degree of Doctor of Philosophy, specialty 090014, Philosophy of Religion and Religious Studies. Clause 11 of the above has not been violated by the author. Thank you, Vladimir Vladimirovich. Please remember, first of all, I would like to thank Vladimir Vladimirovich for a very interesting and analysis of my thesis. And I think it's certainly important that Professor Miliano found the main provision of thesis and research to be absolutely fair. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the work of Sergei Nikolaevich Davydenkov, Evolutionary Genetic Problems in Neuropathology, to which he refers. But I agree with the position regarding the need for a comprehensive approach to the analysis of key issues and to reason the study
and the desire to understand the structure and functions of the ritual event should be based on an attempt to understand the true nature of the ritual action. In this respect, the monograph of one of the most famous scientists, physiologist, Professor Davydenko, who considers human behavior from the point of view of neurogenetic processes taking place in the neural system, is of very significant interest. I also believe it's very important that definition of a ritual on page 60. I can say this is my this is my attempt to generalize understanding of the ritual. So I'm not though I'm not competing with other authors who defined this relieving anxiety and other but in other capacities of the ritual, which were mentioned long before Professor Davydenko's theory was created. So thank you once again for this valuable comment, which gave me an opportunity to take a different look at my work. Thank you, Irina Borisovna. Now let's hear the next review, the member of the Dissertation Council, and give to Nikolai Anatolyevich Samoilov, Doctor of History, Head of Department, acting as Head of Department. Dear colleagues, I will not read my entire review, if you don't mind, because it's quite long. I think it's probably the longest one. So because my review is mostly positive, so I'll just touch upon the key points. The thesis is dedicated to historical and philosophical analysis of a classic Chinese text, Li Ji, which is part of the famous Chinese Pentateuch, and describes rituals of rites of passage. The subject of the subject theme of this thesis seems to be ritual because today researchers are becoming more and more interested in functioning traditional cultures, and here we may complete that the study in rituals is still highly relevant today, and the importance of symbolic behavior has not been sufficiently studied till the present day. Yet, unfortunately, so we have to submit our rituals a long time in advance, and something happened which I should have included in my review, because 1 week ago I saw something that, in my opinion, defines relevant and significance of Irina Borisovna's work. What happened is 1 week ago I was in Beijing. I had a free day between the Beijing Forum and my presentation, so I decided to visit famous Beijing in Wanfuzhing. Fortunately, there are still some. So I wandered through those narrow lanes, and I saw an inscription, Li Shahutu. First, I saw this inscription in Latin. I didn't understand, and then I approached. I saw the hieroglyphs are different. So I saw this Li, which we are discussing today, and Shi is Shenshi de Shi, which means a learned man. A learned man is Shenshi, who passed state examinations. So a state man should possess Li, and this is the name of a small lane in Beijing. So a learned man should possess Li. So this lane was called after a learned man who possesses Li, which means that the study of Li can give a researcher an opportunity to understand many things about the life of Chinese society. One of my students at an exam, when I asked him to list 5 books of the Pentateuch, he started Li Jin, Shi Jin, Li Jin. And I said, it's not Li Jin, Li Zi. So then we both laughed. So maybe it would make more sense, because this is the canon. These are not notes. These are not notes. This is a canonic work, fundamental work. And so once again, let me say that what Irina Borisovna is working on is very important for understanding of the Chinese culture, the Chinese tradition, of the Chinese perception, and even not being aware of that, the Chinese society lives still sticks to some norms. Maybe these are different norms which appeared at later periods. So in that sense, we may say that provisions put forward for defense do not cause any doubt. All the conclusions made by the author are correct and accurate, and there's no point to argue with these conclusions. And among the achievements of the author, I should say that while working on her thesis, Irina Borisovna first time translated into Russian many sections of the treatise, which I will not list here. I will not give the Chinese names here. The scientific results are reliable. So in general, my opinion is very, very positive. Yet, with all the obvious advantages of Irina Borisovna's. So let me give some comments here. Well, first of all, the section dedicated in the introduction is a list of name of scientists involved in Chinese studies who studied and translated chapters of Li or its chapters, and who worked. So the author doesn't even try to give a minimal analysis and assessment of the contribution of modern scientists who also contributed to the study of Li. In my opinion, the author, such a thesis needs a significant historical section. For example, the author doesn't mention some important Russian experts such as Skachkov, Brezhnev, Rождественский. In the introduction, Irina Borisovna defines a goal of a study, but doesn't say the subject. Also, in my opinion, the phrase object of the study and the name of the thesis do not agree. In the thesis, it says that the object of my study is ancient Chinese rites of passage reconstructed with the help of a traditional Confucian treatise Li. But in the name on the case study on Confucian treatise Li, I think the difference is very significant. In the first case, the treatise Li is used as examples, and according to the name of the thesis, these materials become the basis or the object of the study, which in my opinion is more accurate. In that case, the object of the study are ancient Chinese rituals. And thirdly, in section 4.4, Li Ji, in the context of Chinese culture, page 185, the author does not refer to any sources, claims that Deng Xiaoping borrowed from Li Ji the concept of Xiao Kan. Yet, I think nobody knows from exactly which source Deng Xiaoping borrowed this concept. So, in my opinion, the author should speak not of specific source, but of the spiritual tradition in general, based on Confucian beliefs and perceptions. I don't think a specific source, even an important one as Li Ji, can be the sole source of this concept. In addition, Xiao Kan was previously mentioned, Xi. Also, in conclusion, the conclusion is fairly long, only 2.5 pages. In such a fundamental conclusion should be much longer and convey much more meaning. Yet all these remarks do not affect the positive assessment of the thesis, which is a well-grounded and complete scientific work. Thesis by Keidun, Ancient Chinese Rituals of Life Cycle, Structure and Function of Ritual of Rites of Passage on the basis of classical Confucian treatise. The gene meets the key requirements set forth by the order on the 1st of September 2016 on the order of 1 academic degrees at Petersburg University. And the candidate, Keidun deserves the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, specialty 090014, Philosophy of Religion and Religious Studies. Clause 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated by the candidate. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Nikolai Anatolievich. Let's please answer questions. First of all, let me thank Nikolai Anatolievich for such a detailed and important analysis of our thesis. And about speaking of insufficient analysis in Lichi, mentioned by Nikolai Anatolievich, it should be said that this has not been omitted by me. First of all, I'd like to lay my wish related to the study of my PhD thesis as well as extensive article material. The name of Emilia Vasilievich Brezhneva is of course well known to me and mentioned in my works. Brezhneva was worked for the Russian embassy in Beijing, and although he was not a professional sinologist, his great interest in Chinese language, history, and literature led him to the need to comprehend the most important things for understanding the fundamentals of the Chinese reality. In this regard, Brezhneva also addressed the fundamental monument of Chinese culture and literature. However, most of his works on literature, based on translations of scientific works of British sinologist James Legg, in our opinion, a true scientific method of Brezhneva in terms of studying the treatise should be considered the compilation of the first index to Lichi. Now, it's the work of Rozhdestvensky. The work is mentioned in a book by Skachkov. This reference led to the Central State Historical Archives of St. Petersburg. We found information. This was a work of a student at St. Petersburg University, where Skachkov performed in 1862. The work is a translation of 2 chapters of Lichi, most of them and reasoning on the text of general nature. The translations of Rozhdestvensky, most likely based on the interpretation of Lichi, already performed by Legg, already mentioned, French sinologist Séraphin Couvrela. All these facts are also mentioned in a number of my publications. The comment on the object and subject of research is very important to me, and here I absolutely agree with Professor Samoylov. Methodology of any study is based on understanding subject and object of the thesis. However, I don't agree with criticism of involvement of materials in the treatise of Lichi for the reconstruction of ancient Chinese rituals of life cycle, as said in the introduction to the definition, in their use as the basis of characterizing the rituals under consideration, as stated in the title. Because attraction is not reference to quantitative characteristics. Attraction of materials can be both one-time and multiple, partial or complete. In our case, the word engagement is exactly what we mean by use as a basis. I'm extremely grateful to Professor Samoylov for this criticism, which emphasizes urgent need to think carefully about the basic wording of any research. And in the same vein, inaccuracy of some language in the text, I consider the comment by Nikolai Anatolievich, which refers to the phrase in section 4.4, that Deng Xiaoping borrowed the concept of Xiaokan from Li Ji. Of course, I didn't mean that Deng Xiaoping took the concept from Li Ji, but that Li Ji contains and considers, among others, this concept, which is important for the Chinese spiritual traditions, and which at various moments of the Chinese history became a political program of the leading statesmen and politicians. As for the authentic sources of the concept of Xiaokan, the researchers have established that such a text of Shiji, Li Ji, and Mengzi Deng Xiaoping is mentioned because he was the first Chinese politician who, after the persecution of Confucianism in the 60s of this 20th century, after the start of reforms and openness in China, started to talk about building a society of Xiaokan as a goal of social political development. Also, I would like to express my deep gratitude to Nikolai Anatolievich for his comments, which I will certainly take into account in my future work, and thank you for the positive assessment of my work. Thank you very much, Irina Borisovna. Now, let us give the floor to a member of the Dissertation Council, Marina Mikhailovna Shaknovich, Doctor of Philosophy. And Marina Mikhailovna, the floor is yours. First of all, dear colleagues, I would like to greet Dr. Arinin, Dr. Beryoskin. That's Rostislav Vladimirovich Beryoskin, because director of Institute of Philosophy of St. Petersburg University gave me the task to find colleagues. And let me thank you for agreeing, passing through all the bureaucratic procedures which are not, and submitted their reviews, and I look forward to more cooperation in the future. This is very important to us because defense in our specialty, religion and religious studies. Of course, after the speak of Nikolai Anatolievich, who is a famous expert on China, it's hard to add something to a review. But because thesis is presented as a Doctor of Philosophy, Philosophy of Religion, Religious Studies, I have my own opinions, and I would like to focus. I will not read my entire review. First of all, the theoretical methodological approach used by the author. Social sciences and cultural sciences, often it happens that theories and ideas preserve their potential for a long time. And the classical concept, Arnold Genneper, he suggested in the beginning of the 20th century, is still used by the researchers today. Though many new theories have been created. And in this concept, the thesis by Irina B. Keidun is highly relevant. Credibility of conclusions supported by the theoretical statements of classical anthropology and history of cultures, explaining the essence of the rites of passage, and by fundamental works dedicated to the textological analysis on Confucian treatise Li. The aim of this thesis is structural functional research of ancient Chinese rites of passage in the paradigm of rites of transition. To achieve this aim, with the help of analysis of Li, the author has studied semantics and symbolic significance of ancient Chinese rites of rituals, initiation, wedding, and funeral. Van Gennep, in his work, does not use materials related to Chinese religious practice, so the author makes up this gap, fills in this gap. And as for the classical, the transition theory has been used. Unfortunately, I don't know what's happening in this sphere at the moment. If foreign Scientologists are using Van Gennep materials, so I don't know about this. And of course, the study of the classical Confucian treatise is highly relevant and interesting, not only to researchers of medieval Chinese literature, but also to researchers of history of religion. And definitely the thesis is a complete piece of academic writing. and results can be used for courses in religious studies, and results have been tested, so that's beyond any doubt. I have basically one comment to the candidate, which hopefully the author, if she decides to publish a book or maybe in her further work, of course, with all the appreciation of high quality of the work, let me repeat what was mentioned by Dr. Lyemilyanov: work on rituals, psychological, cognitive studies in the sphere of rituals has not been used by the candidate, so she hasn't used important works by national scientists and modern researchers, experts in religious studies, published 15, 20 years ago, which became classics now, works in cognitive religious studies. Classical works by Thomas Lawson, Robert Macaulay, and Harvey Whitehouse. And those many works have been published in English, and reviews have been published in Russian, and so some translations have been published as well. And same, in a similar way, the symbolism of symbolic behavior, phenomenon of symbolic behavior, has not been studied enough. But starting with 1990s, many works have been published by European and American scientists, including the work, including criticism of symbolic theories of rituals. So I wouldn't say that the phenomenon of symbolic behavior has not been studied enough yet. This criticism, this remark, does not affect the overall positive impression of the thesis, and I believe that the thesis by Keidun, Irina B, Ancient Chinese Life Cycle Ritual, Structure and Function of the Rite of Passage, case study of the classical Confucian treatise, meets the requirements set forth by the order, the 1st of September 2016, 6821/1 on the order awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the candidate deserves a degree, and the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, specialty 090014, Philosophy of Religion, Religious Studies, Clause 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated. Thank you for your attention. Marina Mikhailovna, thank you for give the floor to Irina Borisovna. Dear members of the Council, first of all, let me express my sincere gratitude to distinguished Marina Mikhailovna for great attention to my work, positive assessment of my work, and for her comments made by Marina Mikhailovna. I see them as important additions in terms of opportunities for third development of my research, which I will certainly try to take into account in my future work. I accept the criticism that the work does not use the modern works on ritual written with cognitive theories, and I thank Mariana Mikhailovna for this important reference to the latest religious studies. Indeed, today, as the authors say, there's a kind of cognitive turn in religious studies. The researchers who place their ideas in the field of cognitive science to try to learn new methods of cognitive and evolutionary psychology, use the achievements of cognitive linguistics. And if, for example, we talk about the study of ritual behavior, then on neurophysiological foundations of the ritual. The essence of the theory is understandable. One of them, Lawson, cognitive science is the study of processes with the help of which mankind explores the world. In my opinion, the emergence of cognitive religious studies and its active development in recent years can be considered a logical stage in the development of religious studies. We have already tested and made some contribution to the formation of religious concepts and interpretation approach
and the evolutionary interpretation of human accumulate impressive empirical knowledge, and now it's time for a kind of return to not-realistic theories and search of biological foundations of the ritual. In Russian religious studies, has been developed first of all through the effort of Professor Mariana Mikhailovna Shakhnovich, and foreign cognitive religious studies, above all the study of ritual behavior, represented first of all by the works of Thomas Lawson, Robert Macaulay, Harvey Whitehouse, Pascal Boyer, and others. So I also believe that cognitive approach cannot be full at present. This is a new level of development of a ritual behavior, which based on the existing level of knowledge. So the use of cognitive approach. So you can, after we have accumulated sufficient material needed for generalization, so the use of cognitive approach, which has not been studied completely, it has not been fully translated into Russian. So in our opinion, is work for the next generations. As for the phenomenon of last 25 years, many important works have been published in this field. So this, which means that this issue is still interesting, and I would like once again to thank Mariana Mikhailovna for her comments, which allow me to take up new issues of ritual behavior in a new light, and to complement and develop the existing provisions, and to take into account all these important points in my future work. Thank you, Irina Borisovna. And following the procedure, last speech shall be made by the chairman of the Dissertation Council. I'll try to make it shorter because my review is quite long, came out quite long, and I list various positive aspects of the thesis, not simply reconstruction of Chinese rituals, but a good analysis of methods and approaches. I comment on substantial basis, critical position of the author, and the tradition, relevance of the thesis, novelty of the thesis. And as for while reading this interesting thesis, I got some minor remarks, but the material which do not affect the positive assessment of the thesis, and so maybe the material should be presented in so many chapters, and also because Mariana Mikhailovna had similar comments, because the candidate analyzed the tradition of study of ritual behavior. I'd like to know if there are any modern trends in this field. So what are the important works in the past 20 years? Which works do you consider interesting and significant? Then I believe the culture of the thesis is a complete piece of academic writing, is novel, important, and the author has completed significant work in the field of study and systematization of sources. And then, in conclusion, let me say that the thesis by Keidun Irina Borisovna, Chinese rituals on the basis of classical Confucian treatise Li Ji meets the key requirements on the set forth on the 1st of September 2016, order number 6821/1, with order awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. And the candidate, Keidun Irina Borisovna, deserves the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, specialty 090014, Philosophy of Religion, Religious Studies. Clause 11 of the above-mentioned order has not been violated by the candidate. And I would like to give the floor to Irina Borisovna First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to Tatiana Vitautovna Chumakova for attentive analysis of my thesis. High appreciation for her comments and questions, as these are of great value to me and for my future work. First of all, I'd like to justify my position regarding the layout of the material in the thesis. The thesis touches upon several research areas which, although interconnected and interdependent, are independent problems. The first two chapters, socio-cultural nature of the ritual and general characteristics of the transition ritual model, although devoted to both analysis of theoretical approaches to the study of religious rituals, nevertheless, in our opinion, cannot be combined into one single whole, because the problems of rituals of transition is directly related to the subject and object considered in the thesis. So it's necessary to focus on the organization of this material in a separate chapter. As for the third and fourth chapters, Li in Spiritual Cult of China and Characteristics of the treatise Li Ji, some external consonants of the names does not unite them. The last three chapters devoted to the study of specific rituals, Li Ji, can be, however, interpretation of Li Ji of the key aspects of Li. And here, as we found, social, all the rituals described in Li Ji. And the last three chapters, ritual of putting a hat, marriage ritual, and funeral mourning ritual, devoted to the study of specific rituals in the context of Li Ji. At first glance, so this each one presents a different age and limits. So that's why it's important to divide our thesis in these three chapters. In other words, so the structure of the work reflects the limits. And speaking of the new modern trends in the study of ritual, first of all, it's necessary to mention that theories appeared within the framework of the cognitive approach, which explaining the formation of religious through the process of cognition. These theories include, for example, theories that propose methodology for the study of rituals. Here, I'd like to mention Harvey Whitehouse's theory, Ritual Mary, Robert Macaulay and Thomas Lawson theory, based on the notion of so-called agent, or theories explaining aspects of ritual behavior, such as Pascal Boer's theory and neurobiological origin of Andrew Newberg's concept. And I believe that his concept is especially important. Ritual is not only and not just a cultural phenomenon, as was believed before. A ritual is a special biological phenomenon. Newberg and his colleagues focus on the physiological aspects of the ritual, and they believe that all rituals rooted in the neurobiological needs of a man. I would also like to psychological anthropology. So this this field is not really new in itself, but it shows new approaches to the study of ritual. Connect the synthesis of psychological anthropological methods of research. We're talking first of all about the techniques of achieving altered state of consciousness, the role of altered states of consciousness when performing a ritual. In this respect, of course, the works of Erika Bourguignon, who describes in detail the rituals, their goals, types, trends. And in conclusion, I'd like to thank Tatiana Vitautasovna once again for her attention to my work, interesting questions, and positive assessment of my research. Thank you, Irina Borisovna. Dear colleagues, so does anyone present here who would like to speak, who's not a member of the Dissertation Council? Yes. Yes, please introduce yourself. Please introduce Doronin.
his Department of History of Countries of the Far East. I'd like to draw the attention of my colleagues to one specific feature of the work. I think that's important when giving assessment of Irina Borisovna's work. This Li to which the treatise is dedicated. So this concept is this is a very ancient context, and according to the Chinese, I may be wrong, the Chinese civilization is 50 centuries or has 50 centuries of continuous development, and by addressing this topic, Irina Borisovna had to immerse herself in this powerful and very distinct cultural environment. Otherwise, it's impossible to assess how this Li functioned. And if we look, and in my opinion, that's a very challenging task, Irina Borisovna got little help here. Let's look at the dictionary dedicated to the Chinese philosophy. In this dictionary, this Li Ji is present, and it gives about 10 different translations. Why is that? Because there's no adequate conceptual tools in the Russian language. So when dealing with this, Irina Borisovna had to deal with these challenges, and she got little help from the outside. I'm a little bit familiar with the situation. If I suggested to some graduate of a Chinese university this subject, he would most likely say no. But Irina Borisovna was very brave. She took up this enormous task and achieved some success. Even in even small points of her work were very challenging, and the fact that she was able to figure out how these concepts existed in ancient China, I think that's something very important. Thank you. Does anyone else have comments? In that case, dear colleagues, let's hear the review of the academic advisor, Doctor of Philosophy, Professor Andrei Pavlovich Zibiyako. May I make his review shorter? Andrei Pavlovich mentions relevance of the thesis of Irina Borisovna and the study of ritual behavior today is one of the relevant issues important for analysis of specific scientific data. He also mentions that in this respect we should pay attention to analysis of scientific material has not been sufficiently analyzed by researchers worldwide, and the thesis fills in this gap. He also mentions novelty of the thesis, which is a first study of first Russian study dedicated to Confucian ritual. And he mentions that the first time the ritual of passage in Zhou, China, has been discussed for the first time. He also mentions that with the help of this thesis, some important information about ancient Chinese rituals has been presented to the scientific community. He also complements Irina Borisovna's work with the main source. So this classical work did not get enough attention for chronological, because of chronological peculiarities, and the work of Irina Borisovna's work, who worked on this for many years, is very valuable. Andrei Pavlovich also comments on the practical significance of the work, which has both theoretical and practical significance, and will promote further development of the national religious studies, deeper understanding of its key concepts and the system of religious studies in general. It says the material of the thesis has been presented at various scientific conferences and numerous publications. Also, evidence display the main content, show the main content of the thesis. Thus, the thesis Keidun is an independent and deep study, which has novelty, meets the requirements applied to doctoral thesis, Doctor of Philosophy, specialty 090014, philosophy of religion and religious studies. I beg your pardon, dear colleagues. And next, the council members shall discuss awarding the degree for this period of time. I kindly ask to stop broadcasting, and I kindly ask anyone who is not a member of the Dissertation Council to leave the room, and I will invite you to come back when the discussion is over. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, let us resume our meeting. Let's restart broadcasting, and the most important moment of our meeting has now come. I now put the awarding of the academic degree to the open individual vote. Let me remind you that the decision of the Dissertation Council shall be considered positive if more than a half, but not less than 3 members of the Council vote for it. I mean, Council members present at the meeting, as according with Article 23 of the procedure for awarding academic degrees at St. Petersburg University. Appendix 1 to the order. And follow the order. Council member Shakhnoj Marina Mikhailovna, your opinion? Yes. Thank you, Mariana Mikhailovna. Council member Yemelyanov Vladimir Vladimirovich, your opinion? Yes. Thank you. Council member Samoylov Nikolai Anatolievich, your opinion? Yes. Thank you. Council member Arinin Evgeny Igorovich, your opinion? Thank you. Yes. Council member Biryoskin Rostislav Vladimirovich, your opinion? Yes. Thank you. And Chairman of the Council, Chumakova Tatiana Vitautasovna? Yes. Now, I'm counting the vote. Thus, dear colleagues and guests, let me inform you that out of 6 members of the Council, Council members, 6 voted for, no one voted against, and no one abstained. Their decision to award the degree of Doctor of Philosophy with specialization 090014 Philosophy of Religion and Religious Studies to Keidun Irina Borisovna has been taken. Let's give the floor to the applicant for her final word. Dear Chairman of the Dissertation Council, dear members of the Dissertation Council, dear colleagues and guests, let me express my deep gratitude to the members of the Council Board for their attention, positive reviews and comments, because comments will enable me to improve my work. And of course, the key point of Confucius teaching is the aim is to improve continuously. I'm sincerely grateful to my academic advisor, Ripalcha Zabiyako, who was always willing to give me assistance and encouraged me. Thank you for the managers of Amursky State University, my friends, my colleagues who inspired me for this work and who supported me throughout my work. And I am very grateful to my colleagues of Oriental Department of St. Petersburg University who, during the many years of our cooperation, supported me and gave me examples of devotion. I would like to thank St. Petersburg University for the staff for helping me to prepare for my defense. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Irina Borisovna. Let me congratulate you on being awarded a degree. The session is closed. Thank you all for your participation. Please stop the online broadcasting. Thank you, dear colleagues.